everybody. Welcome to my studio. I've been working on some simple lid designs to work on, and I can't wait to share it with you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about pots that I've made in demos. This is a large cookie jar that has a really simple lid on it that's just basically like a little bowl that's been thrown upside down and a big foot that becomes its handle that sits inside. So this one's really simple, where you can see this one I pulled up and I bent out the area for the flange. These are more simple, where I've split the rim to add that little edge and to put the top on. And again, we have just a, this one's got a little chip on it. This is a sugar bowl. Just to put that little edge on. This one's the same, where it's just a little cylinder. I have split the rim, brought it down, and then the little bowl goes on the top. And this one had a solid knob, so I trimmed out the inside. And then we have the same with another shape. Again, we've got that inside edge that the flange has been split, and I've lowered it down and split that edge, trimmed up the inside, measured, made a small little bowl with the foot. That becomes the lid. So let's look at our pots. We're going to do 3 different types of pots based on these for you to try. This is pot number 1, and this has a different type of lid that fits right on the inside, but the same idea of the pots we were just looking at, that as it was thrown, I split the rim, I lowered this down, and I chose to go really far down, like 1/2 inch, so that when the lid goes on, if it's a traditional like little bowl lid, it can sit way down there, or if it's one of these recessed lids, that it can go ahead and go all the way down to the top. So that's going to be pot number 1 that we're going to go over. Then this is pot number 2, and it has more of a traditional teapot shape. We've trimmed the bottom, very simple rim where it was not split, but the flange is on the lid, so this area fits inside the simple rim. The rim fits in here and sits over the top and gives it a nice little profile. There are different types of lids, same on the inside, that can sit on this piece. And this one, I pulled up the knob and I trimmed out the excess clay on the inside. And then we've also got the same as the other 2 on the inside, but I didn't make the edge that comes over as wide, and it sits a little closer. So I'm going to keep all 3 of these and see which one I like the best on the pot. Then we have pot number 3, which is a combination of pot number 1. Let's see, we'll get you over here a little bit. Pot number 1 and pot number 2. And it's like the cookie jar we looked at first, that I've pulled up the rim, very similar to this one, and then I folded it out, and you can see the shape of it on the outside profile. Then when I chose to make the lids, I'm measuring this width for the inside and this width that fits right in that flange. And it's nice to make a couple. I usually make, when I'm trying to decide on my style or what I have a pot in mind, I make a couple lids so I can decide which one works best in the form. And then, you know, if I was going to make this into a teapot, I have these different style lids to look at in relationship to how the spout will fit on. And then after I do my prototype, I can say, oh, this is the lid that I want for all of them, and this is the size. Maybe I want to make it a little bit bigger, but that gives me an idea. This is what I do when I'm sketching and I'm deciding on a style. So let's make some pots. Okay, so I've thrown the cylinder and I have created a flange on the inside that I've gone ahead and pushed this down using a tool. It's really wet, so I have a little bit of a wobble here, curve, looks a little messy. I'm not going to bother that until it becomes leather hard and it's a little bit easier to work with. And I'll clean up this edge also. But I've gone down about 1/2 inch, which is nice because I want the lid to sit down on the inside. Once this is leather hard, I'm going to clean up the edge, trim this little edge a little bit so that the lid sits right in this area and it's going to have a curved edge. It's going to be like a inverted bowl, just a slight curve to it, but I want the top of it to sit down lower than the edge. I need to get a good measurement off of this, so I'm going to use calipers. There's 2 different ways that you can use calipers. You can measure the inside of something by bringing the points together, or the outside edge of how it's round. So I need to know what size to make my lid. I'm going to measure the inside of this, and I'm just sliding those around. Also, I'm using a small bat that has 4 points on it. So I'm going to use these side points as the area I'm going to measure. So I'm going in as close as I can to that edge. Now I have this measurement, and if I set this over on the side, it's very easy to knock this and change the measurement as you're picking it up and moving it. So I want to make sure that I record the measurement, especially right after it's been thrown, because you're going to be throwing wet. You don't want to do this after it's dried, because the measurements will be different. So I'm just really checking what's on the inside. And to make it a little bit easier, I can get out a ruler and measure what these points are and write that down. Or I've taken a sheet of paper and I've written, or I've drawn straight lines out. And I've just measured. You can see that I did one version of this before, but this is the measurement that I have on the inside. And I've labeled this pot as pot number 1. And when I start throwing the lid for this, I can use the calipers, open, and measure the outside of my lid so that it fits in there well. And I've got many lines, so each pot I usually do on one line. Here I know it's kind of hard for you to see. And you can see pot number 1 and the measurement, and I can either use the calipers for the outside measurement, and just saying it again one more time, this is how I got the inside measurement, and I've written that down. Sometimes it's nice too that you have 2 sets of calipers, that you get this set where you want it. Just going to bring that out a little bit more. And then I can always use these other ones. Hoping you can see this. Resting things on my knee. Whoop. So we've got that set here. I can also measure from this. So if I have both of these around, sitting out, I can check it from that. But you need to write it down so that you don't bump these and lose your measurement. Okay, so now I have thrown a round shape, but a really simple opening. So I'm going to make a lid that fits down inside and hangs over the edge. But I need to get the measurement of the inside and the outside. So if I'm measuring the inside, again, I'm going to be using these points to help me get straight across. Let's see, so I want to get right in there without nicking it. Laying that down. I'm right here to here, and this is pot number 2. And I'm going to put inside, which I should have done on this inside. And now I'm going to measure the outside just to make sure that I'm going to hang over further than I want. It's just good to take as many measurements as you can. So I'm here. What I can do is I can just line that up with the other one. Right. Outside. So now as I'm working, can you see this? Sorry. What we should do, this is the inside measurement here. And then I've measured the outside here and written that here. So this is pot number 2. And I've got that for later. I used the same amount of clay before, which was like 2 little pounds. And I made a similar shape to the last pot, pot number 2. I've made pot number 3. But now I'm going to make one that sits within inside this ridge. It's thrown flat and the disc goes in. It has a little handle. It'll make more sense later, but that means that I've got to measure this point right here. Maybe it'll be easier on the inside right there, and where the edge of that lid's going to sit, which is there. So let's get this evened out a little. Let's see. Let's do the larger, or let's do the inside first, because that's what I've been marking down. So I've got it just right there. And I'm going to put it down for pot number 3. And that was a little difficult, so I'm just going to double check it. And set it over a little here on my knee. And let's see, we're doing the inside. So right there. Oh good, so that is the measurement there and here. And we'll write inside. Now I want to do what's, oh, and look, I hit that little edge. That's okay, we'll fix that. I want this to sit right in that middle area there. And I'm coming along with the existing line to make it easier. I only have to draw one. So this is inside and in flange. On pot number 3. So I've added it like that. So now, since I have hit that with my tool just a little bit, without moving it, I just want to smooth that down. You all know already, don't fix a pot when it's stationary. It should always be moving. And I'm not moving this in a way that I'm changing the size. Okay, so there we go. Hi, so now we've got our pots. I've got pot number 1, which is that first one that I threw, and I did the measurements, pot number 2 and pot number 3. And I've placed my paper here so we can just review the measurements that I took. So the first measurement I took, and you can see on this one, I'm just going to turn it over a little bit so you can see. I measured this measurement here, which is right here. And now, after we talk about what shapes we have, I'm going to go in and I'm going to clean this up, and I'm going to reduce, now that it's leather hard, and I can touch it without it moving. It's on the medium size. It's not, I'm not leaving a fingerprint on the leather hard surface. I'm able to touch it and it's nice and firm, and I'm going to put it back on the wheel, trim this area, and then check my lid to see how it fits. I did make a few lids for this one, and this is what you saw in that other bit of the video, but you were looking at it straight on. So I use the calipers to measure the inside, make my line of where it's going, and then when I was throwing this off the hump, I measured here to the outside, and it shrunk a bit now, but I can see that it's fitting in very well. Let's look at that. This one may have shrunk a bit more, got some room in there. Just like anything, you want to make more than one lid. I always stick my finger on something, drop it, and this one's a little bit tight, so it's just a little bit bigger, but I think that's going to be a better fit. But I'm still going to keep both of these just to make sure that I have enough. So those are those two styles, and this is the style that it's not completely flat. It's got a little bit of curve, but this is under 4 inches. So I could have made this very flat, and I still wouldn't have to worry about it slumping. Also, I'm using earthenware. If I was making this in porcelain or stoneware and firing to cone 10, it's very important, if it's over 4 inches wide, that you make sure that you've got this little bit of a curve. It's an arch that holds the weight of the knob when I trim that on. That'll keep its shape as it's fired. Earthenware is low fire clay, and it's not going to get to that high of a temperature where the clay warps due to the weight that's on top. Here's pot number 2, and you can see got the traditional like teapot shape, but I just have a simple, instead of going in and making a flange like I did on this one, it just has a simple rim. So the lid is going to sit over the top of that, and I still have it attached. I can trim a little bit here, but just a nice basic shape. And then I have my lids for that. And this is still pretty wet. I don't want to get stuck on, maybe a little too small. And you're checking this one by measuring the inside. You've got here, and the outside. Maybe so you can see it a little bit better here, that we've got here. And we're checking this measurement. That outside, I want the lip to fit right in there. And again, I made a couple because it doesn't always work out exactly, and who knows what I'm going to do to it. So this could be one that can sit right on top. And I'll be trimming this off. This was off the hump. But you can see that I took this measurement, which I recorded here, and I took this measurement, which is the outside, so that this flange fits right inside here, or the edge of the pot fits within these two flanges. And I made this quite a bit larger, and you can kind of see it in the profile. It's nice that it sits out here. It's not giving me a good design idea right now because I've got so much clay on the top. And that's just so I can handle it and move it around safely. So I'm going to set that one here. And I have one more. It's just a little bit more of a domed shape. I was thinking, oh, it might be fun to have this sit up a little more. And it's also very wet and hasn't shrunk as much as this. And it looks like it's going to need to be altered. But that's a higher point. So it's always good to make at least 2 or 3 lids. So I'm just going to get these out of the way. Whoops, that one's still really soft. So that we can talk about our other pot. This is number 3.